For the past 2 months, I have been eating a 100% plant-based diet. That is a vegan diet. Now, I have already been off of all dairy products and eggs since 2019, and this video is filmed in 2021. So we'll get to see how I felt and how my labs looked after being 100% vegan for 2 months. Enjoy. Just to give you some perspective, prior to starting this vegan diet, my typical diet was very clean. I ate very low refined sugars and very low refined starches. The only difference was I was eating at least 2 8-ounce servings of meat per day, and mainly it was sardines or chicken or turkey. During the past 2 months, I noticed that my energy levels were pretty much the same. The only difference was during my workouts, so during my runs and during my weightlifting routines, I felt like I had more endurance, and this could be due to me feeling like I was able to breathe more clearly, because another thing that I noticed on this was that I had less inflammation or less puffy feeling in my intestine, which basically gave me more room to breathe. It gave me more room for my diaphragm to open up to breathe. So I don't know if there was something chemically going on with the plant-based diet, or was it just that my levels of inflammation in my intestines got low enough that I was able to take in deeper breaths. But for sure, when I was doing my runs, I felt more endurance. Another significant thing I noticed on this diet was that I had less aches and pains in my joints and less stiffness in my joints when I woke up in the morning. Prior to this, I was feeling like, you know, that feeling when you think you're getting old. I'm only 41 at this time, but I used to have aches and pains, and I thought that was just because I was getting old. But now, being on a vegan diet, I know that I don't have to suffer with those aches and pains. So the joint pains and aches, those have improved since I've been on the vegan diet. And also I noticed that after I do my workouts for the day after, normally it would take me like 2 days for the muscle soreness to go away after working out. Now it's about a day, so I recover faster from my workouts as well. Something very interesting I noticed on the vegan diet is that the level of plaque formation on my teeth is way less than whenever I was eating meat. Maybe this is due to having different species of bacteria in my mouth now, or maybe the pH of my saliva has changed and minerals don't accumulate on my teeth, but this is something that I have noticed, and I like it. The final thing I notice is that I have less salt cravings, and because of that, I eat less salt. So you'll see when we go over my labs, it's kind of weird. It's going to be counterintuitive that now I have less salt cravings, and subsequently, because I'm not consuming as much salt, I feel like I'm not as thirsty and I'm not urinating as frequently as I did whenever I was a meat eater. Now I'd like to share with you some objective data after being on the vegan diet for 2 months, and we're going to be comparing lab results from July of 2020 to June of 2021. So let's get started on these labs. This column here is this year, 2021, and this column here is a comparison from 2020. So this is the complete blood count, and here we can see white blood cells, red blood cells. Nothing too significant there. One of the markers I was following was my MCV, which is the mean corpuscular volume, which is the average size of your red blood cells. And in my case, mine are larger. At least last year, they were larger than the reference range, which is 79 to 97. So at 98, that is considered macrocytic anemia. And one of the main causes of that could be due to a B12 deficiency. And so compared to last year, actually this year mine went down by 1 point. Not too much of a significant change. I am still going to be following this marker. Now as we go down, we can see all the white blood cells were all in good balance. And let's get into my blood sugar here. So blood glucose from last year was 95. You can see the reference range is 65 to 99. So 95 is still within the range. This is a fasting blood draw, so I hadn't eaten anything for the past 8 hours or so to doing both of these tests. So we could see this year my blood sugar was 79, which is pretty significant change, although this will fluctuate all the time. Every few months or so I'll do a spot check, like with the diabetes glucose monitor, and check my blood sugar when I'm fasting. On average it's usually around 83. Next was something that I was very interested in seeing, because over the past few years I have noticed that this number here, this estimated glomerular filtration rate, which is an indication of how well the kidneys are filtering, over the past few years it has been getting lower and lower. And I mean, a 72 means that I am technically in stage 2 chronic kidney disease. And I was very concerned about that, and I was concerned that maybe eating too much protein was affecting that. Now in the medical literature, too much protein doesn't necessarily cause kidney damage, but if you already have a significant amount of kidney damage, if you consume too much protein, it could make it worse. So it's just something I'm following, something I was worried about, and something that I was hoping to see an improvement on when I got rid of all animal proteins, which it has significantly improved. It's up to 88 now, which almost takes me out of stage 2 chronic kidney disease. And if I could get it above 90, then that'll put me in a more safer zone. As you can see, the range here is anything above 60 is the range. And if you're below 60, you're going to be in that is stage, let me take a look here if I can remember that. Anything below 60 is in stage 3A kidney disease here. Next we'll get into what I was talking about earlier with the salt cravings, and why I thought it was kind of weird is that this year my sodium was actually elevated. So after being on the vegan diet, my sodium was elevated. The reference range for that is 134 to 144. So we can see here I'm at a 146 now compared to last year where I was a 141. Now, like I said earlier, back when I was eating meat, I was eating a ton more salt, especially when I was eating like lunch meat and stuff too, which has like a ton of salt on it. So that's kind of strange that my salt was lower when I was eating meat and then higher when I'm not eating that much salt anymore. So that was kind of interesting to me. These are all the electrolytes, which are an indication of kidney function, so those are all in good balance. Albumin to globulin ratio, that's this A to G here, that was elevated this time and last time. Every time I do this test, my A to G ratio is elevated, which is not a big deal. It just means that my body produces more of the protein albumin than it does globulin. It's not a big deal. Next, something that I thought was quite strange was that my cholesterol, so you can see last year when I was eating meat, total cholesterol was 136, which is low, which is fine, it's within the range. And then this year, total cholesterol on the vegan diet is 142. Now I always give my patients like a 20-point leadway on cholesterol, because cholesterol will fluctuate a lot based on what you ate the day before you did the test. Just to give you some perspective on that, let me open up this other lab from 2016 where I tested my cholesterol. On the day before I did this test, I had a couple shots of whiskey that night, and you can see someone who normally has a lower cholesterol, that after drinking whiskey the night before, my LDL cholesterol and my triglycerides were elevated. So LDL was 103, that's above the reference range of 100, and my triglycerides were 183, which is above the reference range of 150, and I attribute that to the alcohol. So this difference in cholesterol here, it could be just due to what I ate. I'm gonna be doing more tests as time goes on and getting more data points to see if there's a pattern. But very interesting that I would suspect on eating a plant-based that my cholesterol will go lower, but it went higher. Now the lab, somehow they didn't have the data for the VLDL cholesterol here or the LDL cholesterol, but I actually have that lab here, so let me pull that up from last year. Last year my VLDL was 13, which is good, that's within the range, and my LDL was 76, which both of those are in the range here, compared to this year where we have VLDL at 22 and LDL at 80. They're still within the range, but compared to last year, 80 is higher than 76, just 4 points though. Not too much of a difference. Something I was hoping that would change more drastically was my hemoglobin A1c, which is your average blood sugar over the past 3 months, and it didn't change at all. Last year 5.4%, this year 5.4%. I was hoping it would go down. The reference range is 4.8 to 5.6. Doesn't mean I'm in any danger or anything, but I want to get my blood sugar lower just because I have a family history of diabetes. Next, I tested just a basic thyroid test, which is the TSH, and mine was right within the reference range. Mine's 2.43, reference range is this here. So I was right within the range on that. Last year I didn't test that one, so there's no data. Another thing that I wanted to test again was my vitamin D. Most people are deficient in vitamin D. As you can see from last year, which was 2020, when everybody was going crazy because of the pandemic, I was also going crazy, taking a lot of vitamin D. At that time, I was taking 4,000 IUs per day, which is not a huge dose, but apparently I absorb it quite well because my level was 118, which is above the reference range of 30 to 100. I like my patient's vitamin D to be around 50, which this year mine was 52.9, and this is from me taking 4,000 IUs of vitamin D once per week and getting out into the sun almost every single day. So I'm able to maintain a pretty good vitamin D level with just that. So I want to stress the importance of anyone who's taking vitamin D on their own to just, every 3 months or so, have your levels checked just to make sure you're not taking too much of vitamin D, because this is a fat soluble vitamin and it will accumulate in your body. The final test that I did this year, which I did not do last year and I wish I would have, is the vitamin B12. And for obvious reasons, when you become vegan, right, we know that one of the most common nutrient deficiencies is B12 because the major dietary source of B12 is from animal flesh. And since I'm not eating that for the past 2 months, I haven't been getting my B12 from that. Now, I was taking a B12 supplement, a chewable pill that was 1,000 micrograms. I was taking that twice per week, but I had stopped taking that for about 2 weeks prior to collecting this blood sample, and you can see my level here, 276, which is, in my opinion, that's low. I always want my patients to be around 500, and you can see the reference range here. The low end is 232, so 276 is hovering pretty close to the low end, and if I get below that reference range, it kind of strengthens my hypothesis that I'm at risk for developing something called macrocytic anemia. Now, remember earlier when I was talking about that MCV, last year it was 98, this year it was 97, which is getting close to the top of the range, 79 to 97. And this is a sign of low B12. When this MCV gets elevated, it's a sign of low B12. So last year when I was eating meat, it was even higher. So I'm wondering if I have a condition known as pernicious anemia, which blocks your absorption of vitamin B12. In the future, I will probably run that test on myself just to verify it. But in the meantime, I will continue to take vitamin B12, 1,000 micrograms every single day, just to make sure my B12 is up. And hopefully the next time I check, that MCV isn't elevated and everything is good. Most of the benefit that I noticed on being 100% vegan was the subjective things, the first things I mentioned. Not having as much joint pains, not having the plaque formation on my teeth, having more endurance when I did my workouts. The objective data was kind of what I wouldn't expect. I would expect my cholesterol to have been better than before. However, my cholesterol was already low anyways, and I would have expected at least my hemoglobin A1c to get lower. But the good news is my kidneys have improved, and that was one of the things that I really was a little bit nervous about, considering my maternal great-grandfather, he died of kidney disease, and I have an uncle who passed away from kidney disease as well. I'd love to hear your story about dietary changes and how you felt when you made those changes, so please put those down in the comment section below. If you like this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and click the bell so that you don't miss out on more videos like this one. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.